Hello neighbors, it's Brad here from eTrailer, and today we are taking a look and installing the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver on a 2019 BMW X5. Now, adding a hitch to any vehicle, even a luxury SUV like this, is a great addition because it really opens up as to what you can do with your vehicle. So whether you are using a bike rack, a cargo carrier, or even pulling a trailer, getting the right hitch is going to be a big decision. I think this is a great option because it's a hidden cross tube, meaning the only thing you're going to see once it's installed is going to be the receiver tube opening as well as the safety chain loops. And this being a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening means that this is kind of the standard size for receiver tube openings, meaning you're going to have tons of options when it comes to bike racks, cargo carriers, or even a ball mount if you plan on towing. And all of those are going to stay in place with a 5/8 pin and clip. This is not included with the hitch, but many times when you pick up accessories, they'll have a pin and clip included. If you plan on leaving your accessories on long term, you might want to look at a locking pin and clip. It's a really good addition as a deterrent for someone walking by. They can't just take out your pin and clip and those accessories with them. Now, if you do plan on pulling a trailer, your safety chain loops are super accessible. So if you're hooking up your safety chains with a standard S-hook or a larger clevis style, it's going to be super easy to do that. And another reason that this one might be a great option for you is the towing capacity. This is rated pretty heavy duty at 7,000 pounds for a gross trailer weight rating, and that's going to be the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded onto it. And that's a pretty serious number. Our tongue weight's also very solid at 700 pounds. That's the weight that's on the receiver tube opening and really accounts for suspended accessories. So bike racks, cargo carriers, things along those nature, and with 700 pounds, you can load this up with a 4-bike rack or a cargo carrier on vacation, and I really don't worry that you're gonna go over that weight capacity. Now, it can be used with a weight distribution hitch, which will help get the trailer nice and level and prevent some sag, but the numbers are gonna stay exactly the same at 7,000 pounds and 700. Now, with that being said, those are very high capacities, but you want to make sure that the vehicle is capable of doing that. So check the vehicle's owner's manual to see what it's capable of towing, compare that with the hitch capacities, and take the lower number so you don't overload it and you stay safe in the process. Now, when looking at some accessories like cargo carriers and bike racks, they can stow in a vertical position. And some vehicles, you have an issue with it not being able to fold up properly because of the clearance, but I don't worry too much with this one. From the center of our hitch pin hole to the furthest point of our fascia, we're at about 3 inches. So even choosing a ball mount, you can get kind of a standard shank length and you should be fine. And to determine the rise or drop necessary for a ball mount, getting our ground clearance is going to be important. So from the top of the receiver tube opening to the ground, this one comes in at about 14 inches. And the best way to determine the rise or drop for a fixed ball mount would be to get your trailer nice and level and measure from the ground to the top of the coupler. You can then take that measurement, compare it with your hitch, and determine the rise or drop necessary. You can always get an adjustable ball mount to account for that, but in this case, I would guess more than likely you're going to have a ball mount that's going to be in the rise position, probably by a couple inches. Now, I do like this one, and if you're looking for something that's maybe a little bit more premium than this and has features like getting this completely hidden, something I'd look at is going to be the Stealth Hitch. That's going to be one that has a removable receiver tube opening, and it's going to be limited as far as having a ball mount that's fixed. And if you're going to be towing, they're going to include that wiring. Their instructions are really good, but it's also going to be a difficult installation. And unfortunately, this one's no different. This is one of the more difficult hitch installations that you're going to be seeing here at eTrailer, or ones that I've done. And mostly BMWs just have a lot of good hardware putting it all together, but to take that all out can be a little bit tricky. You're also kind of dealing with the tailgate and getting things underneath there, and removing the reflectors can also be a little bit difficult. Now, watch the video and you can determine whether or not this is something that you're going to want to tackle yourself. You're going to need a few extra tools that a normal person may not have, but if you're mechanically inclined and not afraid to get your hands dirty and jump in and try it, this is one that step by step I'll walk you through. But it is a little bit tricky, and if you want to still get it installed but don't want to worry about the install, maybe you don't have the time, the place, the tools, or even the want to do this yourself, that's totally fine. You can find someone close to you to get it installed by using our dealer locator. You can simply put in your zip code and find a list of shops close to you to get this installed so you can be out on the road either towing or using your accessories and not have to worry about that install. Speaking of that install, let's take a look at that now. Now we're going to start it off by going to each of the fender wells, and we're going to pull back our trim. And eventually the fascia, you can see, attaches to the rear quarter panel. So we're going to want to pop this back a decent amount here, but as you're pulling it back, don't crease it, because if you do crease this plastic, you're going to have a line that probably won't come out. So just kind of take your time. There's a tab that's on the bottom that interlocks with the bottom, so if you just pull this back a little bit, you should be able to get this to pop out. The clips aren't terribly hard to get snapped out, but there's our little clip here. And so just take your fingers or a plastic trim panel tool and just slowly work this back. And once we get to this point, right behind the crease of the fascia rear quarter panel section, this should be good enough for now. What we're going to do is go to this plastic rivet. We're going to need to drill this out, and if you've opened up your hardware, you're going to find that they supply you with new plastic rivets to replace this. So to get these out, you're going to want a drill bit, and you can use, they recommend a 13/16. I go a little bit larger. It makes it a lot easier to pull these out. So just in that dead center spot, there's a metal piece there. If you just take your drill bit and work this out, and generally once you drill through, that should come out. And you'll see with this, you can pry it out if you need to, but it's a whole section like this. So you should be able to get all of this out. Now, if you're having trouble getting that to come off, what you can do is once it's drilled, just kind of pull on this, and that'll start to separate it, and then you can pry it out. But we'll get this taken out, and then there's going to be one more that's going to be located on the kind of rear portion underneath on our fascia. So I'll get this raised up and get that drilled out as well. So same concept underneath here. We'll get this drilled out. Now, I mentioned that BMWs are really well built. There's going to be 24 fasteners underneath the fascia. So they're all going to be an 8mm socket, but essentially anything that's facing downward. So as you go through, you're going to find them pretty much across the board here. Now, there may be some that you don't technically have to remove, but point those out, and even I'm not really sure 100% which ones. It's just better to get them all taken down. So let's get these all removed, and as I mentioned, having a nice organized spot to keep them for reinstallation is definitely going to help you out. Now, once you get some of the screws taken off on this center section, it very well can pop down, so don't be surprised there. And something else I'll point out, all of them except for 2 screws are going to be large washer. The 2 smaller washer ones are going to be in this little inset here. So just for future reference, as you're taking these down, you may not notice that, but for reinstallation, something to keep in mind. Along with that center section, these 2 side panels are also going to come out. There's a little tab, so just kind of pull this back, and then we'll set these aside. Now, this step is one that I've run into more than a few times doing a very similar installation on BMWs. These reflectors need to come out. Now, I'm going to warn you that the chance of kind of cracking these just like a little corner is very, very high, so much so that we have extras here at the shop because of that. And the reason being is this snaps in a few different spots, and it has a hook that's kind of here. So ideally, we pull this straight back, but it's a very tight spot here. And this little edge here, just any pressure, it's going to cause this to snap off. So really, really be careful here, and really just don't beat yourself up if it doesn't come out clean. I actually took the other side off and managed to clip this, even knowing that this is a trouble spot. So there's really not an easy way around it. Sometimes on some models and years you can reach behind it. That's not really the case here. So I'm going to do my best to just slightly pop this out, and if I can, I might get a trim panel tool in here and put some tape to just kind of help pry that to keep the pressure off here. But again, this is one of those that even with delicate pressure, I've still managed to crack these. With our reflector removed, there's going to be an 8mm screw that's located right here, so we'll get those taken out on both sides. So now with an extra set of hands, we're going to get this fascia or the lower portion removed. And what we're gonna do is I put a little painter's tape just along our painted edge. That way, as we pull this off and put it back on, it's just a nice, easy way to protect any scratches from occurring on your clear coat. So we're gonna reach back, and there's just gonna be clips along here, kind of like our fender well, very similar. So we'll start by popping these off, and we're gonna go to both sides and get that separated. Now, as we start to go towards the center, there's gonna be clips along here that we're gonna kind of push down and pull back at the same time. Now, it is a little bit tricky here, so just kind of take your time. And we don't want to completely remove everything because there's going to be an electrical connection, so we don't want to damage that in the process. So a good amount of force here to get that, and then on the bottom, we're going to want to pull this part back, and you're going to see that there's going to be some brackets here. If you grab along here to loosen it, it's really going to help that along. Now, once we get these popped out, it does take some force. You're going to push down on those tabs and just kind of shift it out. You'll start to walk it out, and then you can get pressure on here. Now, the clips underneath the tailgate, these are also pretty tricky. It does take a little bit of force to get these to slide out. Now, once those are all out, the fascia should slide off, and as I mentioned, that electrical connection we're going to want to separate. So it does have this plastic push that's holding it in, so we're going to separate the plug first, and there's going to be a tab on the top here. You're just going to pinch that down. And sometimes these can be tricky, so just take your time here, and if you need a little bit of extra wiggle room to work on it, you can pull this tab out. It's just got a plastic attachment to the plastic here, so this one is fighting me a little here. Top and bottom has a clip, so kind of work at this. There we go. And then this plastic push, just pop that out. And at this point, your fascia should be able to be set aside nice and safely. Now with the fascia removed, we're going to need to take off some other things, and that's going to include these small, just appearance panels. Now there's going to be 2 plastic push pins per panel, so there's one here and there's one on the other side. You want to be careful here because you have your paint from your tailgate, so just either with a flathead screwdriver or a trim panel tool, you'll just work at the center. And then once you get that popped up, you should be able to take the whole thing out. And again, it's pretty tight here, so you don't want to slip with your screwdriver and cause any damage in the interim. So just be patient here. I'll get that taken out. And there are some plastic clips that also hold this in place. So we're going to want to get this popped off. And on the clips, if you reach underneath where these slots are, there's one here. You can just pinch on the bottom here, and that'll pop that up. And then on this one, what I'll do is I'll take my screwdriver, and then once those are popped out, we can set this aside, and we'll get this side taken out as well. Next thing we're going to want to remove is going to be our backup sensor, which is this plastic spot here. And that's because we're going to take our bumper beam off completely, and this being attached to it is going to be in the way. So we'll pop these plastic push pins out. And then we have this electrical connection here. We are going to want to remove this plastic push that we have. And as far as unplugging this, you don't have to. You should be able to just kind of set this aside for now. So just make sure that you don't have too much stress on the wire. But the next thing you'll notice is going to be that our exhaust, this is going to be attached to our bumper beam. So we have our hanger here, and there's a 13mm nut that's right here that we need to take down. The same goes for the other side. Now we're going to remove our bumper beam, and it's just going to be 4 18mm nuts on each side of the bumper beam, so a total of 8. And we are going to be reusing these for the hitch installation. So you can keep these handy once you get them removed. So again, an 18mm socket. Now we'll pull our bumper beam off, and we're going to be doing some modification to this, so now's a good time to get either a Sawzall or an angle grinder or whatever cutting method you have to cut this. So for cutting this out, I used just a 1-inch piece of painter's tape because that's really the gap that we're looking for, and I ended up cutting this off by putting it in a vise and using a Sawzall. And the reason being is the design of the hitch. If you look at where it bolts up, this is going to sit behind the bumper beams. So this section here is going to go in that gap, and that's why we're cutting off that edge. Now we'll grab our hitch and we're going to slide this onto our studs. And it might hit the heat shield just a little bit, but I don't think it's going to cause too much issue. And while you're holding it up, you can then take your bumper beam, slide this over, and then with those nuts that we removed, I'm just going to get one started on each side. It'll support these, this combination, and then we can get the rest of the hardware all hand tightened in place. So once they're all started, I'm going to snug those down with the 18mm socket. Now I'm using a 1/2-inch impact. No need to get crazy here. We just want to tighten everything up because we're going to come back immediately after with a torque wrench. So just get this all tightened down. Now coming back with our torque wrench, we'll torque these down to the torque setting found in the instruction manual. And this is going to be important because using factory studs, this is what's holding on our bumper beam and our hitch. So long term, we want to make sure that this is tight enough to be able to tow that heavy capacity of this hitch, but also not be too tight, putting stress on those threads. If you need a torque wrench, we have them available here at eTrailer. You can generally go to an auto parts store and rent one for free, but either way, make sure you get these torqued properly. So at this point, your hitch is installed, but we need to put everything back in the reverse order, making sure that we get our kick sensor panel put back in place, plugging in our electrical connections, and also putting our exhaust and reflectors back in. Now the only piece that I would say to hold off on is going to be this center section, because we are going to do some trimming, but we'll get everything put back in place and then I'll show you how to trim this. I got just about everything put back together. We're still going to trim that center section, but you probably remember those rivets we drilled out, and if you're going, well, what about those? Now's the time to get these in. So grab the new rivets from the kit, and if you've never used a rivet gun or you need to get one, you can rent one from an auto parts store, and they're pretty simple. You just slide this in place. And this is a plastic rivet gun, but you can use a regular rivet gun. It should work the same. So as you slide this up, you'll just crimp this down, and then it'll get tight, and then pop off that end and get our rivet back in place. So we'll do the same thing for our spot up here by our wheel well trim. Now I've marked out where we're going to be trimming, and it's going to allow this to slide up and over. So if you're worried about that spot on the heat shield to bolt up, we're going to be cutting right along there, so not to worry on that. And I did realize that it does slightly alter the ones on this. You can bend this back, and if you really wanted to, you can do a relief cut on here just to kind of ease that tension, but it's not completely necessary. So you'll see that this is kind of perforated right here, so it's going to get kind of weird just because this dips down, so trying to get a nice square cut there is kind of difficult. Now, after playing around with this, I would say if you're watching this and you haven't made your cuts, you can stick with that original width, cut this tail end off, because that's going to allow you to slide this back. I really just don't see how it's going to slide up. And even if we were to leave a little plastic back here, it's going to be very, very thin anyway. So I think this is just going to be a better option and a lot easier to do at the same time. So I'll get this all in place, and beyond that, that's really going to do it for the installation of your hitch. And that was a look and installation of the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver on a 2019 BMW X5. Hopefully this video helped you get your hitch installed or determine if someone else is going to install it for you. If you did do this yourself, and during the process you can snap some pictures or maybe find things that were helpful, or maybe things that I missed that can help neighbors like you get their hitch installed later on, please leave a picture and comment. It really helps us make our videos as best as possible for neighbors like you to tackle things like this at home. My name's Brad. Thanks for watching.